GearWebsites.com is your source for firearms-based playing cards and books. We also have mugs, shirts, and posters with designs that we've made live. Of course, we have patches. Every Friday is Free Patch Friday. We appreciate your support. Thank you for shopping at GearWebsites.com.
Every Friday is Free Patch Friday. We appreciate your support.
It's 11:59 at Radio Free America, and this is Uncle Sam with music and the truth until dawn. Right now, I got a few words for some of our brothers and sisters in the occupied zone. The chair is against the wall. The chair is against the wall. John has a long mustache. John has a long mustache. It's 12 o'clock, Americans, another day closer to victory. And for all of you out there on or behind the lines, this is your song.
And welcome everybody to our weekly wrap-up. On Fridays, we go live and focus on what was Second Amendment related this week. Got a poll up for anybody that's watching live, if you thought this was a good week or not. So we'll go through the description of the video here, but we're going to jump over to Patreon, where it's a little easier to see because we get the chance to add some illustrations and stuff to the blog post. So I'll zoom in on that a little bit for the people that are watching live. And feel free to participate as we go along here. So this is a pretty decent week for 2A. And I think one of the better things this week was the Reload's interview with Cody Wilson. It's an interesting week because there's stuff going on that's just scratching the surface of what's all coming down the pipe or whatever. And this Cody Wilson guy was the guy that invented the first 3D printed gun, the Liberator, or at least the first one that got a lot of hype. And he's got a company now that makes a small mill that takes a block of aluminum and turns it into a receiver. I think either 1911 or a AR-15. And then he's been on the Reload this week. And then he was on, we'll talk about it in a little bit, he was on Crump. And I don't know if it's the dude or if it's just the situation, but if you watch those two interviews, there's a lot of information that can be gleaned by his composure and his focus and his decision and his the way that he takes the conversation. This is the important one. I'd watch this one, but if you want to watch the variance in the community, then I would compare it with the interview with Crump. This one, though, is a good one, and they address a lot of the important pieces and elements of this thing that most everyone else is ignoring. Everyone else is choosing to jump on the glorified ambush that's set up here. Everybody is focusing on the sugar with the poison and ignoring the poison. And in this interview, they acknowledge the poison a little bit. With Brooke Cheney, who does the Great Start Shooting School, firearms instruction in Connecticut. She's also involved heavily in Second Amendment advocacy. And one of her projects is to have a consistent focus on mental health awareness, suicide prevention, and every Saturday she does a project called Suicide Prevention Saturday, which is typically a short format, live conversation. It used to be produced, but now she seems to do it live more often. And the goal is to offer pieces of information to add to our ability to have conversations with people on our side and the other side about the 2 out of 3 firearms deaths that are suicide. So when they want to use the deaths related to firearms against us, are they acknowledging that 6 out of 10 of those deaths are from suicide and not what they would suggest our property might influence? So by adding or by being aware of these pieces and adding these elements to your conversations, you can have more effective, useful conversations with both gun owners who can take that knowledge and have more successful conversations with antis. And then your conversations with antis should be enhanced as well. Plus, Brooke is just nice, and it's fun to be part of that. DJ's out here, and he helps her out. Thanks for doing that. Thanks to everybody who's shown up live, from Kojo, DJ, and whoever MZ is. You're new. That's another one focused on mental health, is another project focused on mental health, and another video this week was Walk the Talk America, and that's another project that's been going on for quite a few years now. Jake is the physician side of it. Then there's a person from the industry, Mike, who's involved as well. In this video, it's a short video, and Jake is offering, again, some bits of information, some tools for the toolbox on how to raise mental health awareness, so that having conversations about mental things are the same as we might have about a broken ankle or a broken arm. It doesn't add much you don't change your opinion of the person if they get a broken ankle. You're just concerned that they've strengthened their ankle so that they're not going to have it happen again, or that they're not damaging it, right? And once we can get past whatever stigmas are on mental health awareness and conversations and stuff, we're better off in the long run, especially, well, it's also with firearms. Again, Walk Talk America is a great project worth checking out, and these short videos are just another example of their effectiveness. Then we get to Barbecue, who doesn't bother to show up to the show, who has a 2A Women Wednesday project, and this week he had Rhonda Mary on, who's a she's an activist, a pro-rights activist, and firearms and Second Amendment advocacy. The civil right of what the Second Amendment protects are in her realm, and she does a really good job of getting that message across. And she's been on the scene now for a couple of 3 years, at least on the national scene. And Barbecue's doing a great job of interviewing ladies on the regular and getting their various projects some light. Definitely worth checking out. Let's see, we have another lady who's doing things. Amanda Suffecool was on the Riding Shotgun with Children's Collaboration. That's a show that they do. Well, I think they said they're going to start doing it twice a month or something. They're changing the schedule up, but they've both do interviews on their own. They got together and then re-interview or do a second interview with some of the activists and people that they've had on over the years. And it's pretty cool. You get a chance to get them back in touch with each other. So sometimes it's just sort of more of a reunion show. And then other times it gives the person who's being interviewed an opportunity to chat more about their project, or more than just an introduction to their project. And in this case, Amanda's got a bunch of things on the table. She always does. And she's retiring from her full-time, quote-unquote, job, or quote-unquote full-time job, I guess they said, and getting ready to pursue some more activism. Looks like she's getting ready to experience life on the road as an activist and preparing and getting adapted to that. Let's see. And it's very nice to be able to have a show that's an hour long where there's an opportunity to ask questions and interface with the guests instead of just watching a live interview that might as well be canned or prepared because they don't have any feedback from the audience. Eye on the Target Radio is Amanda's show, and I just learned that it's on the Polite Society Podcast YouTube channel. So I posted a link here, and it's just one of their shows. I have heard of the show before, and I may have listened to it like once before, but I thought it was just on Facebook. So now that I see it's on the Polite Society Podcast, I'll probably be watching it more often and including it when it's appropriate to be listed here. Next up is Echo out of Florida. Is doing a series of interviews, and he had on Jenny J 1911, who's a fifth grade teacher, or at least was a fifth grade teacher. I don't know if she's still a teacher or not. And she's been doing a bunch of stuff in the firearms realm, mostly reloading, and doing her own series of interviews and been hosting some live shows. So it was a pretty good collaboration for these two to hang out and learn more about Jenny and her motivations and goals. There's a link to her channel. Let's see, then we get on to that Krump interview I mentioned with Cody Wilson. Now, I listened to this one first, and I pay attention to Crump stuff when I'm around and I'm able to do so. So while that one was live, I was able to catch it live, and I asked what while they were having the discussion, which was mostly focused on the issues at hand and not so much farting around. I asked them what portion of our time should be spent talking about compliance versus challenging this, all the stuff that's going on. They attempted too much. No, isn't this an opportunity to get many folks on board and address this many ways? I'm interested in ways to fight, prevent, and challenge this. We know braces are on the way. And their response there was kind of both. And then they went on talking about the situation from that they were talking about. So they asked the question, but then they didn't really give it much of an answer. What about the industry, gun shops, obligations? I didn't have time and I'm typing this live, but gun shops' new obligations are insane. Manufacturers will now be run out of business or possibly be now run out of business. How about awareness and call to action to representatives at state and national? When do we challenge our media to address our media, not the other media, but like our media, us, to address the numerous issues with letting this pass and waiting to see what happens with braces? In other words, trying to suggest, hey, shouldn't we be doing everything we can full throttle right now so that when they drop this new one in, it's already the wood chippers running? Or are we going to start first, once we got a big pile of garbage to deal with, then we're going to first start the wood chipper and get ready? It seems like they didn't really have much interest in addressing this on that show. I didn't really have a chance to ask it during this one, which would have been a better one to ask it to potentially, although this isn't a very fast-paced show, so it might have taken a while to get an answer, and it might have been a very full answer. Additionally, I asked the same set of questions since the same night, whatever Budget calls himself now, what does he call himself? MK something. But the content creator formerly known as Budget Guns and Gear does his show on whatever day this was, Monday, and I asked the same question. They spent a little more time talking about it. Then we get Gun Freedom Radio had Christy, I don't know how to say her name, Kajiwara, and Guzman, whatever her name is. And she's the DC representative for Hawaii. And it was interesting to listen to. Don't get a lot of feedback from Hawaii because those people live on islands and they don't ever talk to anybody. But every once in a while you get some insight from there. And it's frustrating to be a gun owner in Hawaii, I imagine. But that was an interesting interview because you don't get very many of them. Next up is a small short video from Machine Gun Nest, becoming one of my favorite channels on YouTube. They make these quick, to the point, effective, well-produced videos. And as far as I can tell, they're just a gun shop who's fighting for the good fight. I don't think anybody's supporting them, and they don't expect to be shouting this from the top of the hills, but they're using their skills, which are numerous skills, to get the information out. And good information this time about a New York situation where they're going to tax ammo 2% for 2 cents for 22s, and then everything higher than 22s are going to be 5 cents a round, and crazy implications of that. Then the lawyers from, what are they called? Armed attorneys, the lawyers from Texas, had a couple of videos. I posted this one. What is this? Lawyers are best in their lane, not attempting to do things outside their specialty. Therefore, SAF and FPC have placed and fill a need in the greater fight, while regular lawyers are the rubber meeting the road. All right, I guess now I remember. I guess I did write that. It's been a while since I wrote that, but that is my writing. So this video is pretty short. It's one of their little short previews that they do. Sometimes you'd think, oh, they're just doing this to fill time or create videos, but they're actually focusing on things way faster than USCCA, who exploits things, to my opinion, more often. And while I don't like their opinions, they usually have an opinion. The armed attorneys have an opinion, And, sometimes an opinion is the way to go, but sometimes having a spectrum is a little bit more useful in firearms things. But they're lawyers, so whatever. They're given more of a pinpoint answer all the time. But in this case, I don't think that was the case. I think they were, attempting to get good information out there. And in this case, at least if the message I got out of it is that there's different kind of lawyers out there, and they're basically defending themselves in this video for how come they're not suing the federal government as Texas lawyers who do YouTube videos, and they're criminal defense lawyers, I think. Why don't they sue the government? And their video is basically saying that, not all lawyers are the same, and lawyers are the best in their area of practice and not trying to do things outside their specialty. Therefore, the FPC, Firearms Policy Coalition, who are lawyers, and Second Amendment Foundation, who pays lawyers, have a place and fill a need in the greater fight, while them, the regular lawyers out there, normal lawyers that we're familiar with, are the rubber meeting the road. And I don't know if that's correct or not, but it sounds like an interesting way to put it. And nobody ever talks about stuff like that. So at least I haven't heard that brought up very often, and they did. Let's see. Then we get Gun Owners Radio, another radio show. So this is the second radio show, along with Eye on the Target Radio, that I learned is broadcasting on YouTube. Gun Owners Radio is out of Southern California, and I've been aware of them for a while now. They seem to be respected. However, they focus primarily on California and even Southern California issues. At least, the priority is Southern California, then the rest of California, and then the rest of the world. So while that's good, and I'm glad they're doing that, I'm not in Southern California, so a lot of that focus is time that I'm not able to do anything or just get more and more frustrated about what our neighbors are having to deal with. But this week they had on Professor Yamane, and he had posted that he was going to be on there, and then in his post or somewhere I figured out that they're going to be on YouTube, so I watched it. Was it live? It was live. They do their video live, and then they pull it down or they change it, they edit it, and then they put it back up. Which seems stupid to me, but what are you going to do? It's their channel. But now they lost all the comments. So, of course, there are no comments when you take down a video and repost it. Now, it might have been for some specific reason this week, or it's just their way of doing it. I'm not going to tell them how to do their channel, but I think all the comments are lost. But I did ask a question, and then they asked it over to them, and then I posted the question on Instagram and linked everybody. So an attempt to interact with the live conversation and add usefulness to it. When you have a conversation with people who don't know each other, they're going to be awkward potentially, or spend a lot of time wasted. And I suspect Professor Yamane would rather be on there talking about issues or bringing up insight instead of talking about the weather or creating some kind of relationship as like establishing his character or something. So I asked a question. I forget the question now, but I asked him a question that was more on point to whatever he was. I asked him if the people that he deals with in his circles, who are the people like professors and researchers and stuff, if the antis and the pros, or if you divided them in antis and pros, which ones would be more interested in the other side? I was wondering which ones are more curious about the opposite side. And he said that it's pretty much even. By the time you get to people who are researching and actually care about the situation, then they are aware of both sides and pay attention to both sides. And then he said to get to the extremes on both sides, people care less and less about the details or the overlap or whatever. So he answered the question. So the idea was to ask a question that's useful during the show and then post that on multiple platforms to link to the show and to let people know about the happening of the show, just like I learned about it. And then that's how a whole bunch of actions like that equate to projects becoming larger and more awareness, and then eventually less opportunity for people who want to manipulate to have free reign over the society. So next we'll go to Jaeger. So a bunch of people can just shut this off because I'm going to talk about Jaeger and how awesome he is. So Jaeger went over to Ukraine with these two dudes, and this dude's got a YouTube channel, and this is just some guy with a beard. I don't know either one of them. But this was a 2.5 hour video where they debrief. They go through and kind of chat about what the situation was and what they thought and how they got there and what they encountered and then the adventure. I listened to most of it and I had to start doing taxes again, but this was live this morning, I think, and I listened to a chunk of it. Earlier in the week, though, he had a couple of these short videos where he talked about the, I guess I don't have these in good order, but he has the gear that he brought and then the medicines that he brought. Then there's this debrief here. And then he had a couple of videos. The one I'm going to talk about is where he had Costa on. So Chris Costa, people give him as much shit as they give Yeager because they stand on the sidelines and think that they're looking at superheroes or celebrities or something. But in real life, these are just two regular dudes who have done some stuff. And then once YouTube came along, I'm happy to have had the opportunity to be around these dudes while they experience YouTube for the first time. And I mean, I've had that opportunity with everybody that I know on YouTube, which is probably everybody most people know on YouTube. Well, not everybody, but a lot of the people from YouTube from 2012 to 15 era. That's when these guys got around it and started to play with it a little bit. And of all the real life people that use YouTube, people that have done things in real life and people that didn't need YouTube but decided to play with YouTube, these two have had some of the most fun with it. They're real dudes. Costa's, again, misunderstood and just cool. He's like a fun dude to get as an instructor, and he's got definitely a different attitude and a different methodology between him and Yeager. Yeager's methodology is mindset, right? Mindset, get your head in the game and understand what the real game is, and then you bring all your pieces to the table. He don't care how you shoot or how good you shoot. He cares about mindset, and the rest of it will fall into place. Costa's more about techniques, I guess. His philosophy is for example, in a rifle class, if you've got 2 seconds to take a shot, he'd rather figure out a way to get into the position to take the shot in as quick a time, as short a time possible, so that you have the longest portion of that time frame to take the shot and have the most success with the shot. And that's a characteristic you'd get from somebody who was doing things on the move, who was doing things dynamically, just use his phrase, as opposed to maybe a sniper who's sitting there for an hour and a half before they have to take a shot or are able to or something like that. So it's just a different mindset. And because it's kind of the difference between jazz guitar and rock and roll guitar, learning from different people, you learn different techniques and different skill sets. And then what you get out of it is a blend of it. So two dudes that, I'm not trying, they don't need no help from me, but they are good dudes. I've known both of them for a long time. I know Yeager more than Chris, but hung out with Chris quite a few times when he would come down to Tucson. He would give me a call and we'd go film and stuff. So I've had an opportunity to hang out with these guys on the camera and off the camera. And I'm not saying I'm best friends with them or nothing, but they're legit real. And I've spent more time with both of these dudes than a lot of other people that will sit around professionally talking shit about these guys. So with that in mind, this is a pretty fun one. You get to see kind of them palling around with each other and just having fun. And the way Yeager has he's done some amazing shit, period. But now the way he's dealing with his situations now, it's just more and more obvious who the real people are out there. Let's see. So then we get budget. What is this? Guns and gadgets. So the other budget guns and gear is guns and gadgets. So Jared, he posts videos all the time. This one was about Biden illegally having a ghost gun. So some reporter in DC did a bunch of work to try to find out where that 80% came from during the president's speech or whatever. I guess it's fun to challenge the boss of the executive branch of government on whether or not he has the authority to do something illegal in Washington, D.C. But I think when it all comes down to it, the guy who's in charge of all police in the entire country, we all know that the laws don't apply to the guy who creates the laws like that. And I don't mean in like a way, but it's just in like obvious dumbass way. If you're going to stop somebody from committing a crime and you take possession of their weapons, you've got the authority to take possession of their weapons, which means you have the authority. So of all the things in April of 2022 we can be complaining about. We shouldn't let up pressure on nothing, but 60,000 views about that. I'd like to see 60,000 views on the DC project, and not just to like, hey, pat on the head, look, girls are here too, but like, let's get our gun shops involved. Let's have all of our gun shops sponsor one of the DC project ladies. If you don't know the names of your DC project ladies, consider yourself not really a gun owner. These kind of challenges. Let's make sure that the DC project ladies aren't doing this entire mission with their own time on their own dime, right? Let's do something to get people working on stuff that has an effect. I mean, this is neat, but this is chatting up some what's her name? Some kind of reporter who is trying to make a name for herself by complaining about like one of the most minor things you could complain about today. Then we get the Browning Winchester separation. The Williams Family Museum is pretty awesome. They're up to 600 subscribers now, so want to whale on that. And if you have a channel, you might want to subscribe. It's a museum up in northern Nevada that's pretty new on the scene. As far as I know, there's the Medal of Honor Museum is pretty new, but the Browning or the Williams Family Museum is the newest private museum that I'm aware of, and it's a private collection that has been open to private tours for a while, and then more recently has opened up as an actual museum. And a lot of their outreach or a lot of their activity, since they're kind of isolated, is through the video of YouTube. And the grandpa does these kind of discussions and dives into the various realm pieces of the collection, or takes some pieces off the wall and talks about their similarities or the evolution or what they represent. And in this case, it's the separation from Browning from Winchester. So, of course, Winchester started with the Volcanic, buying the Volcanic lever action pistol carbine from Smith & Wesson before they made revolvers, and they didn't like the anemic bullet in the Volcanic, so they let Winchester buy it from them, and they went off to use the bored-through cylinder in Colt's revolver and turn it into a Smith & Wesson Model 1 with a 22 short bored-through cylinder cartridge revolver, the first ever, and become Smith & Wesson. That Volcanic hung out with Winchester for a little while, and him and Henry kept farting around with it until they got it to be useful. And then Browning comes along, and Winchester books out to Ogden, Utah, and says, hey, can I buy this rolling block or falling block action from you, a little 22 single shot? And he's like, yeah, sure. And then I think at the same time he buys a shotgun off, or he buys a does he buy a shotgun or a rifle? He buys something off of him, and that starts the relationship with Browning and Winchester. For a long time, Winchester just buys everything Browning makes because Browning's a genius and he's making all kinds of clever, interesting things, and he's got success after success. He's creating things that people want. He gets to the A5, the Auto 5, a semi-automatic shotgun. It's not the first semi-automatic, but it's the first semi-automatic shotgun ever made in the United States for sure. The only other semi before this was some sort of stupid European gun in a stupid caliber. So Browning creates an automatic shotgun, and Winchester goes, oh, I don't think people can dig that. I don't think they're going to buy it. So that's when Browning says, all right, you know what? See ya. I'm not hanging out with you no more. And Winchester had been buying everything Browning made as kind of a hedge so that no one else could own anything Browning. And this is that straw that broke that back, and Browning separated, went to, I think, eventually FN, Colt, Remington, and then Browning. I think all made the A5 or some version of it. So I didn't know that. I always thought the A5 was just a weird looking shotgun. I didn't realize it was the first semi-auto, and I've been to the museum multiple times. So I know I've read it before, but it never sunk in, and I'll probably lose it again because it's just shotgun knowledge. But an interesting little video for 14 minutes. You get to see the actual stuff, listen to the dude who's passionate about it, and support an awesome family museum in northern Nevada. Then there's Cash. I don't know why DJ's saying worrying about it, but Cash just did a video today about this Jennings, doing stuff to it. I watched it, but I'm not doing too good, so I didn't get much out of it. But cool that he's making a video, and it's a nice shiny one. So, and it's a Jennings box, so it looks like it's an actual Jennings. That would have been an old one before Brico, before Jimenez, and before JA. Let's see. Then we have a couple of military interviews that were good this week. First one was Eric Mieras, and that dude did all kinds of fun stuff. And everybody that thinks they know what's going on because they've seen a couple of movies or whatever, listen to these interviews and you get a much better idea of the spectrum of what special operations is. Because a lot of these interviews are with special operations people, but also the people, the not just the support, that's totally different. They never interview the support, but the people that work with them in the other specialties, is I guess what I was trying to say, that work with them. And when you talk to the people who work with like Delta and these other teams, you really get an interesting or more aware like picture of the whole thing. And people that are doing stuff at the edge of the blade often don't know what they're doing because they're so caught up in it. They're literally just doing the specific task at hand. They're the razors, so they don't get to decide what they're cutting or when they're cutting, and that's all they do is cut. So the people that are there to add, I don't know, support, enhancement, security, like different elements, the other folks that are there right next to the blade, they often have a much different perspective, and they see things totally differently than the people who are actually just the cutting edge. And super interesting to listen to some of these interviews. And then let's see. And also the way that somebody who, for example, is getting the crap kicked out of their body by having to be near breaching explosives, especially during the eras when we were discovering how breaching explosives even work, or people that are just going in and having IEDs blow off next to them and stuff. People that have to do that shit or jump in and do that stuff versus the people that are standing a little bit behind them have a much different capacity as far as brain injuries and the ability to express what happened. So very interesting to hear people from different areas, like I say, around the edge of that cutting blade. And this is especially useful for the global war on terror that's lasted the last 20 years and changed warfare. Also, I like to keep in mind is the individuals we hear on these interviews are the rare specimen who wants to talk about what they did or had an experience that they're willing or have any interest in talking about. Keep in mind, many people's experiences aren't anything they ever want to talk about again, and they won't. But that's also just representing a single thread of the massive rope, right, or the massive entity that is the veterans from the global war on terror. And the people that have seen true heinous bullshit in this planet are not going to stand and watch as bloated bureaucrats do garbage and bullshit. So people that want to say all doom and gloom are not really paying attention. And I'm not saying that everybody in these interviews talks about ambition towards politics, but the cut of this group does not fall in line with the typical narrative of what the next generation is. And next we get to, and that was Team House. Team House is a pretty good one. It's the two dudes with some experience that go in and let the person basically talk, and then they kind of bring some questions up from the live audience. It happens Friday, so they quirk my show, so I don't ever get to, actually it's happening right now, right? So I'm not watching it, but I'll watch it after the fact. Sometimes if I'm paying attention, I'll go in there because it starts an hour before this show, and I'll try to comment and give them some encouragement and some thumbs up kind of thing. Then you get Combat Story. So I'm not sure which one I like more. I listen to them both, and I'll keep listening to both of them. I like them both more than Mic Drop at this point, because Mic Drop is changing his format and just interviewing whoever he feels like now. And it's not so much the long formats anymore. It's just whatever format he feels like. And that's fine, but it's nowhere near as good as these. So Team House is pretty good this week. And I don't know what happened to Combat Story. Something must have happened because he pulled it down and reposted it like the other show. So he doesn't typically do that. So something must have happened. It was a live conversation, and then he pulled it and reposted it with just still images. So there must have been something in the background that was not to be seen. But still an interesting conversation. Both of these actually have been people that have been interviewed on other shows. In fact, they both may have been on each other's interviews before. But again, that's we're not talking to actors on a film junket or whatever that's called, or like a writer selling their book, or even somebody hawking their product. What we're listening to is interviews with folks who are being interviewed by people they respect, talking about situations that they've been in and experiences that they've encountered. So they're just being real. You could listen to 12 interviews, in other words, and you might get the same telling of similar stories. If people ask about a certain story that, you know, has relevance in their story or their life or whatever, but you're hearing it new every time and from that person. And again, just being real, with traumatic brain injuries, guys forget stuff and they remember stuff. And when you're talking to somebody who wore the same hat as you or did the same shit as you have different remembering. You can remember things differently. So listening to these interviews from different interviewers is epic. It's really interesting. People may not realize it, but this is some of the coolest shit that's happening in the world at the moment. We didn't ever have this. You could have joined the army in the old days and got this kind of information, but I haven't seen anything this real with this type of situation than, well, joining and listening to old guys. And you got to do a hell of a lot of push-ups to listen to old guys tell stories like this. Except these aren't all old guys. These guys are just getting out of their shit. All right, next up is combat story, and that is Mike Seal, and a Marine, who is now skydiving and doing some stuff. So I've listened to both of these ones, and I'm not going to say they're the best ones ever, but it's interesting, especially if you listen to them before, to hear them again on a different interview or a different time. All right, then we'll get to some of our stuff. We got the Pot of Gold auctions was on Tuesday. We did a quick preview of that, looking at the stuff. They didn't have a ton of guns, but they had a lot of ammo, interesting stuff this time. We had our 4th tactical quiz. Thanks to everybody who participated in the tactical quizzes. And then our continuing series on the personal legal protection for CCW, otherwise called concealed carry insurance. We've got a 9-episode series going there, and this was number 7. I'm thinking at the end of it, since I don't even remember anymore, we'll probably do some more Q&A, and then I might have some interviews, and then we'll see what people are requesting from it. All right, with that, we did pretty good. That's pretty much everything. I'm going to start doing the Instagrams as their own episode, because this turns us into a longer show than it needs to be. Thanks everybody for showing up, who showed up live. I don't see any questions or anything. Got metal guys out there. DJ was out here. To me, the global war on terror started in Beirut in 1983, or at least it's interesting. It's not the way it worked with the global war on terror, but that's when, I don't know, that's not when terrorism started, but it's like more towards the beginning. It had probably been when the hostage taking started, and I think that was in the 70s with, like, I don't even know if it was with the Olympic thing or what, but it started to get more, I don't know, more in the spotlight. And that's not always that it happens more, as much as they just want to focus on it more, right? Like they need to bring it up as an issue. Mokojo is saying, digs the machine gun nest. Check out Runkle of the Bailey. He does legal commentary with a leaning towards firearms law. Oh, okay. Oh, Canadian law, but some international. I've hung out with Canadian law and stuff more, or Canadian issues, when Bob was around, but Bob hasn't come around, so I tend to ignore Canada when I don't know anybody up there. Right on. Thanks. We just talked about your video over there. I watched it once. I'll watch it again, but cool to see that threw a video up at the Ring of Fires. All right. Well, thanks everybody for sticking with me. Baron showed up, and Cash at the end here. We go live every Friday to talk about what happened this week. You can check it out over on the Patreon. And then I'm going to try to do the Instagram thing on Thursday. Just this week threw me for a loop. So thanks again for everybody that purchases stuff over at our gear website store. It's the way we're able to keep several dozen websites up with a lot of information. Most of the stuff we do on the social platforms links back to those websites, with either archive data or feeds, like the calendars and things, or data like the Minuteman University. So again, thanks for the people that purchase stuff. It makes it possible for us to do what we've done, and we hope to be able to continue to do what we do. We've been doing taxes this week, so it always looks dire. But we'll be back tomorrow with the Ask Gun questions, and considering doing a tactical quiz daytime on the weekends. So if you would, give us some feedback in the comments wherever you happen to see this, over on UGE Tube. Finally got some comments over there, over on guntube.org or Gunstreamer, or one of the other places that we post this. Let us know if it's worth doing a tactical quiz Saturday edition at a more reasonable hour during the day. Till then, thanks everybody for tuning in. Gizzard is live after this. Travis is live in the morning. Rick goes live. We're live, and Barbecue is live, and then G23 goes live. More importantly, Brooke does her suicide prevention Saturday tomorrow, and I think Weekly Bullet or something happens tomorrow too, which is sometimes good. With that, have a good weekend, and we'll be back to pick you up later.
GearWebsites.com is your source for firearms-based playing cards and books. We also have mugs, shirts, and posters with designs that we've made live. Of course, we have patches. Every Friday is Free Patch Friday. We appreciate your support. Thank you for shopping at GearWebsites.com. So let us know what you think. We'll be watching the comments wherever you find the video, over on Gunstreamer.com or on Guntube.org. Thank you for supporting our projects. If you'd like to buy us a cup of coffee, check out our Patreon channel.
The guys and gals of GunWebsites.com encourages you to take a CCW class every year, practice at least once a month, and carry every day. Thank you for watching GunWebsites.com.